Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And Jupiter is the planet that grants us luck. And I've been kind of wondering about the term luck nowadays, if it's just dropping from the sky or if it's really like alignment. If we open ourselves to something that we want and we walk in that direction and we align with that thing because we feel deserving of it. So whatever luck means to you. And it's also the planet of expansion, of growth. And so this video is meant to look at what it can mean to have Jupiter in this sign for your life and how you can increase your ability to attract luck to you or to make your own luck, if you look at it that way, and also to grow as an individual. So Cancer is a cardinal water sign, and water signs are coming from the emotions. Life is perceived through one's emotions. Cancer is very sentimental. It rules the fourth house of home and family on the astrological wheel. And because of this, people with Jupiter in Cancer are people who benefit from things that are connected with the home. So this can mean a sense of really honoring that private space. And with Jupiter, it can even mean that you want to have a bigger rather than smaller type of dwelling. So if you're the type of person, maybe you have your sun in Capricorn or Virgo or some other sign that is more economical, let's say, and that tends to value being thrifty, in other words, you may try to keep things rather contained and not go overboard. Now, Jupiter loves to go overboard because of that expansive quality, but you're actually lucky in anything where you are looking at your home base in an expansive way. Now, it doesn't mean you need a McMansion, but perhaps you want to have a house with high ceilings, or maybe that gives that illusion of being large and expansive. Or perhaps it's simply that you just want to really honor that space in the way that means a lot to you, that you value it, that you take extra care with it because it means something to you. Not everybody has the same relationship with their abode, if you will. And this is something that if you are mindful of how much home means to you, it will really benefit your life. And this can also include just being a homebody, somebody who enjoys their home. Sometimes we are encouraged to just like always be outside and doing things, but for some people, the home environment really nourishes them, and that's really what Cancer is about, is nourishment. And by the way, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and that means that it is in the position where it can function in a top-notch capacity. And it's interesting because right now we are experiencing Jupiter a transit of Jupiter in Capricorn, the opposite sign, which is supposed to be in detriment. But it's important to note that Jupiter is such a positive influence that even the challenging aspects to it are not that big of a deal. Jupiter's main challenge is not to be excessive and wasteful. And so, this is kind of what I'm talking about too when I was speaking about home, is not going overboard. There might be some people who have, an afflicted, like in other words, have hard angles, maybe several hard angles from Jupiter to other planets, and that may indicate that they get a little bit excessive with their home or with the sentimentality that Cancer is known for, that they get a little bit too much like that. Because actually, and I don't think that the sentimentality is a big deal, because I think it would be more like wanting a McMansion, or always wanting to add on to your house, do things to your house, because you make that such a central point in your life, centerpiece in your life. But really, having Jupiter in Cancer can really assist people emotionally. They can really benefit emotionally because they just naturally have this abundance of positive, nurturing feelings. And, Cancer as a sign, like let's say you have a personal planet, Jupiter is not a personal planet, so it's not necessarily going to affect us the most in terms of our core personality traits. But let's say you do have the sun or moon in Cancer, or even Cancer rising, to be honest with you, because that can affect your perception, how you carry yourself. And there can be sometimes moodiness where the person wears their heart on their sleeve. And so if they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, everyone's going to know it. They're not going to try to hide that they're grumpy or crab, because they, I was going to say they want everybody to suffer with them. I don't know, but that's just how they roll, because the moon is the ruler of Cancer, so it's very changeable. And so it's possible, it's really they can't hide it because they're changing so much. In about 10 minutes, they'll probably be laughing. But when Jupiter is in Cancer, the modeling qualities, which is like, excessive sentimentality, or maybe excessive sentimentality would be kind of associated with Jupiter in Cancer. I think so, because I'm actually living with one of those myself, and he is quite overly sentimental. But definitely the moodiness, I think, is going to be muted, or lessened, because Jupiter is associated with positivity, optimism, and so it will bring out more of the positive emotions, I believe. Now, Jupiter rules the stomach, and it also rules food, which makes sense if it rules the stomach. So anything that you are engaged in that has a connection to food is going to be lucky for you, including the type of work that you do if you go into the restaurant business or things like that. It's important to note that Cancer is a sign of nurturing. So food is a form of nurturing, and I was noticing the phoneme nur, which is also in nurse, and the word nourish, even though in English, it's OU, like French influence. I'm talking about nourish, but I'm sure it has that same root of taking care of. So you may feel, so when you're taking care of someone in general, whether it's through feeding them, but especially through feeding them, and anything along those lines, you are lucky. You expand your life because this is what your how can I put it? This is what the gods are shining down this luck for in your particular chart. And of course, you also look at where is Jupiter in the chart. When you have planets that are not personal, it's actually going to be more important to look at where they reside in the chart than what sign they are in. And this, I would imagine, I've read this and I'm just kind of regurgitating this, but I'm imagining that this is because your chart is personal to you based on, I'm talking about your natal chart specifically, based on the exact time that you were born. So if your Jupiter is in Cancer, everyone born in that period of time, within about a year, a little bit more sometimes, is going to have the same Jupiter. So that's not very special. It's a lot better than, your Pluto sign, which is, 15 years worth of people with the same sign. So it's a little bit more personal, but still, it's not as personal as, where is Jupiter in your chart. And so that's the beauty of the natal chart, is how deep it goes. So the food industry, but also personally, there's like this, I think there's this concept about healthy food not tasting good. And if something tastes good, it must not be healthy for you. And you have the opportunity to create an eating plan. I'm trying to use a word other than diet, because people think of diets as like temporary eating styles, but creating food that is both healthy and therefore nourishing to your body, compatible with your stomach, and is also nourishing you emotionally, and not eating for, to suppress emotions, but how they talk about comfort food. Well, there's something, you're talking to a Taurus rising. There's something, I can rhapsodize about food here. There's just something when you eat a food that either is kind of like your favorite from childhood, or just something that you really like, whether it's, the junkiest junk food, or it's really healthy for you, but you really like the taste of it. It does, it really does seem to like uplift our souls, even though it's this material substance. So, Jupiter is about kind of the higher mind and our, relationship to God. But it's funny, you have a spiritual experience eating food. That could be it. But definitely, and I think this is something that everybody should do, but I'm saying this specifically to you, is to have a relationship with food that is not problematic, where you don't fear food, you don't try to restrict food. Jupiter is obviously going to want to create, you don't want to be a glutton, be excessive, but so maybe I don't even have to lecture you about this. But it's about more than that, because actually that is, to me, a lack of respect of food, when you engage in gluttony. Because when people, like when you eat in all the people who eat at those buffets and things like that, where they're just kind of shoveling it in, and they're not necessarily eating in a mindful way, which is really like appreciating the food and the individual things that you're eating, not necessarily eating like a smorgasbord of like 1,000 different things, but appreciating the things that you're eating. And so it's not about quantity over quality. It's about quality over quantity. And so that's where the Jupiter side comes in, is being careful to, be mindful and don't just think about, oh, I have a lot of food here, but also nourishing others. And being hospitable. So in other words, welcoming people into your home. And, one thing that was mentioned, I have the website page, theastrocodex.com, open here, so I can just refer to it. I discovered, rather than take notes, this is even easier. I can just look at the different themes and expound upon them. I was going to say expand upon them, but expound. But one thing that they were talking about when they were talking about the housing and having a big house, but they were also talking about having different floors that can house different generations of a family. And so a big family wanting a lot of children, wanting maybe that extended family. What did they call that? They used to call that, there's the nuclear family, and I don't know, the extended family, I guess, is the other one. Grandparents under the same roof. This used to be the norm. People didn't live necessarily by themselves, just a husband and wife. Sometimes they had the grandparents there as well. But in any case, I would also add, treating your friends like your family and having them over a lot for dinner, and having that sense of like, and especially if you don't personally have children, you may look at your friends as your family and want to host dinners and feed them like you would if you had a family around. And that's wonderful as well. That expands you because it's that sort of emotional connection, the warmth of those people around you that is so comforting. But also for you, it expands you. It does. And maybe just with that emotional comfort, it makes it so that you can feel as though you are able to give to others, that you're able to be hospitable to others because you have your heart chakra all filled up with all kinds of good stuff in there. And the other thing too is the historical angle, because Cancer is connected to the past. So people with Jupiter in Cancer can really benefit from getting into their genealogy, their roots. And when I said roots, I was thinking of that documentary. I mean, not documentary, that movie, that miniseries. And I never saw that, and I never read the book, and I'd like to. I mean, it was such a smash hit in the 70s, and it's interesting, in that case, talking about the African connection, due to slavery. But for anybody, sometimes this is just basic curiosity, love of the past, but it can also somehow enrich you because you can see, maybe if you're like a musician, you find out that you had a great grandfather who was a professional pianist or something like that. And it's like, wow, maybe these kinds of talents do get passed down from generation to generation. I certainly, I love reading biographies and autobiographies, and I always find it fascinating when a famous musician, or we can just say a performance artist in general, like an actor or something like that, when they have relatives who have done it, sometimes maybe distant relatives, and they didn't even know them personally. But it almost makes you think that there's something in the ether that is being passed down and influencing the next generation, or generations that, skipping over generations even. So this may be something of interest, but it can possibly expand your life in some way. And of course, we can even talk about a professional affiliation with the past, which would be like a history professor. Definitely, if you have personal planets in water, and if you have Cancer, forget about it. Or like Mercury in Cancer, or any water sign actually, but having a photographic memory, that is, especially for a history professor, this is especially good. Or like a historian, somebody who is passing down this knowledge, because it's very helpful to remember dates and to vividly be able to communicate these sorts of events. I was even thinking of somebody who is, if you have literary talent, maybe you're a Gemini or Sagittarian sun sign, or the like, and you might be able to write historical fiction, and you research it. I mean, even though it's not your actual, well, it could be your ancestral roots, but it could be somebody else's, and you just have that ability to interact with history in a way that makes it come alive through your words. So that is certainly a genre of literature, historical fiction, that a lot of people find very engrossing, I'm sure, because, and it can be either with the juvenile fiction or the adult fiction. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for listening. If you would like a private reading, the link to my website is below. Take care. Bye.